Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager. I have been telling you for all of my broadcast career that big business has no values. And it is actually changing. Big business has now left-wing values. One of the most suicidal forms of thought in history of big business supporting people who consider capitalism corrupt. But they went to college and they want to feel good about themselves just like other people and who have gone to college and want to feel good about themselves. So Nike has decided to take a man who has only done harm to the country and to the sport of football. That is his legacy. I know he thinks he's a moral giant, calling the country racist. The country that is the least racist, multi-ethnic, multiracial country in human history, where, for the most part, if you are a black American, you are the luckiest black on earth. By the way, I also wrote, if you're a Jewish American, you're the luckiest Jew on earth. And if you're a Hispanic American, you're the luckiest Hispanic on earth, etc. That's my belief. I think you're lucky to be an American, all right? Black, white, whatever color. I think if you are desirous of keeping your Native American culture alive, it's a very hard call. A great tragedy overtook the Native Americans. I couldn't agree more. The great tragedy overtook the indigenous people of every society to which foreigners came. And it was simply not a culture prepared for the modern world. It's not an indictment. It's not a condemnation. It's just a fact. Unless you would like to have kept North America in the hands of the buffalo-based culture in terms of eating. I mean, it was not a culture that gave us human rights or women's rights or democracy, and it is not a knock on them. No pre-Western or non-Western culture did. So it's no knock. So I acknowledge the tragedy of being Native American, but as I said, it's been a blessing nowhere. Once Western civilization arrived, to have been a member of the indigenous people of that continent. Otherwise, you're very lucky to be an American. Colin Kaepernick decided that you're very unlucky to be a black in America, and it is so bad that despite all the blacks who died for that flag, he won't even stand for it. And now Nike has made him a hero. In one of the most disgusting acts of a private corporation, Nike has decided to make Nike apparel. Colin Kaepernick apparel. Here's an ad, for example. This is how it looks like. It's a picture of Colin Kaepernick, just his face. Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. To give you an idea of how stupid, forgetting that it's Colin Kaepernick, how stupid those words are. You know how many people have believed in bad things and sacrificed everything? Believe in something? Believe in something. What a stupid piece of advice. What an immoral, amoral piece of advice. Believe in something? Really? Well, why wouldn't this apply to the people he is supposedly against? They believe in something. He's supposedly against racists. Okay, racists believe in something. It's called racism. And it may mean sacrificing everything. You're pretty much hated in the United States if you're a racist. It's a stupid message for stupid people. If you think that's a profound message, you're not too deep. If you think it's a profound message, the odds are you went to college where you learned to be superficial. It's called the Just Do It campaign. What does that even mean, just do it? It's another meaningless phrase. Just do what? Just do what? Just take your clothes off in the middle of the public square? What does it mean? Just do what? Nike will produce new Kaepernick apparel, including a shoe and a T-shirt. And if the merchandise sells well, the value of the deal will rival those of other top NFL players, according to people close to the negotiations who spoke on condition of anonymity. Nike will also donate money to Kaepernick's Know Your Rights campaign. Boy, if there's one thing Americans are not being taught, it's their rights. As I have said to you so often, the difference between a secular and a religious education can be actually isolated to this phrase. Secular life, you know your rights, and in religious life, you know your obligations. It's a good one to remember. That's all I was taught at yeshiva. What I had to do, not what I had a right to receive. We would have regarded that as the quintessence of narcissism. Well, we'll see what happens. This is from the New York Times, which undoubtedly thinks is a great idea of Nike. Reaction to Kaepernick's tweet was swift. Almost immediately, Just Do It and Nike became top trending terms on Twitter in the United States, and by morning, the hashtag Nike boycott was one of the most used on social media services. People posted videos and photographs of themselves destroying their Nike apparel in response to the company's decision to work with Kaepernick. Yeah, I can understand why they would do that. Nike's stock price fell more than 2% in early trading Tuesday. Well, we'll see if you're a fighter. See, I normally believe, that's why I said I ate Ben & Jerry's ice cream. I thought they were fools, left-wing fools. But I don't boycott individual companies. But at a given point where their entire point is to say screw you to people who think that people should stand for the flag of the United States, okay, I personally won't buy Nike items. I have Nike sneakers for my workouts. I have to get a different pair. What you need to do is get a picture of Kaepernick with wearing his socks at a football game that picture police officers as pigs. That's what needs to be done and say, this is what Nike supports, a man who portrays police as pigs. Oh, sacrifice everything? How many millions of dollars is he getting for this campaign? He is really a model of sacrificing everything. Everything about this is disgusting. Well, we'll see what happens. See if you fight. It's got to fight back. They can't leave anything alone, the left. They just can't. Whatever they touch. This is a perfect example. I'm supposed to honor a man who won't stand for the national anthem. Country is so rotten that he won't even do that. And it's his obligation anyway. Now they have a deal. You don't want to stand? Fine. Just don't go out. Just don't publicly mock the flag. I guess this is not an Iwo Jima moment in the United States. 1-8 Prager 776. It's quite something. Dory in Los Angeles, Dennis Prager.
Good morning, Dennis.
Yes, sir.
You know, you don't look at the message, but is the flag holy? Is the Star Spangled Banner holy?
Yes.
Is it? It is.
Yes.
Well, if that's the case, then you disagree with the Supreme Court decision on burning the flag.
No, I don't. Well, actually, I don't.
Good. Then what about the Skokie decision, which said that even though we hate that march and that speech,
right, I agree. Right,
speech.
You're right. You're not responding to a word I've said. Stay on. You're making a speech because I never said they don't have a right to it. and the NFL has a right to fire them. That's all. You're taking the NFL's right away. I'm not taking their right away. They can do whatever they want. If they want to ruin football, and that's fine. Hi, everybody. Dennis Prager here. I'm sorry that the last caller hung up. I told him to stay on, but he chose to hang up. That's fine. Hang up. The notion that football players have the constitutional right not to stand for the national anthem is true and irrelevant. They have a constitutional right to strip down to their underpants. I am curious, what would you folks say if that's what they did during the national anthem? They took off all their clothing to the underpants, so there's no issue with public nudity. They still had underpants on. They have a constitutional right to do that? Yes. So what? Why can't people think clearly on... I mean, there are issues that are complex, and it's hard to think clearly. This is not a hard one. Nobody's arguing about their constitutional right. They have a constitutional right to be a-holes. That's just the way it works. I have a constitutional right to say they're a-holes. Yes, if you can't stand for the United States national anthem and its flag, when you are asked to do so, you will sit deliberately at that time, then you are contemptible. That's all. That's my view. I'm paid to give my views. That is my view. That is the view probably of more than 50% of the American people. Has nothing to do with whether you're black or not black. The whites who do it are the same, in my view. Oh, good, he is there. Good. Okay, Dory, so maybe you now heard. Did I ever say they didn't have a constitutional right to sit? Kneel?
No.
So why did you raise the issue?
Because so much is raised about the flag and the banner. Our soldiers are over there protecting rights. By the way, you missed the message.
Wait, your answer has nothing to do with what I asked. I don't understand. I have never said or hinted or implied that this is a constitutional issue. So why do you raise it?
Because you've raised the flag and the Spanish Spangled Banner many times as if it goes against our patriotic fervor.
Yes, that's correct. It does go. So now, all right, yes, that's correct, but not against the Constitution.
Okay. Are you going to tell me that the flag of the United States is more holier than the Torah?
No.
I'm asking you straight up. So, if I desecrate the flag, nothing happens. But if I desecrate the Torah, that is Nevera, because that's given by God to the Jewish people on our
Well, first of all, I believe you have a constitutional right to desecrate the Torah. You don't think clearly, Dory. It's a silly question. If somebody stomped you have a right to stomp on the Bible and to vomit on it. Okay? Did you know that? I believe that. Everybody who's religious, a Christian believes that the Bible is holier than the flag. A Muslim believes the Quran is holier than the flag. You have not made a single point in your entire call. I am tempted to leave you on for the entire hour. I really am. But it won't help you because you don't hear a word I'm saying.
I actually hear every word you
Okay,
say.
so then why did you raise the Torah issue?
Why? Because when a flag becomes so holy in your eyes, so I ask you about value. The flag is but a symbol. A symbol. The Torah is not. And there's not been one case on point that's been brought before the Supreme Court regarding burning a Torah. As a matter of fact.
Okay, all right. Yeah, all right. It's painful. Oh, it's so painful. I'm sorry, Dory. You didn't make sense at all. There's been no case brought before the Supreme Court about desecrating a Torah. Yeah, that's true. It's been no case about my theory about you standing in your underpants. Well, now you know, folks, why I'm a big fan of clarity. Okay. Anyway, that's what Nike has decided to reward. Really, we need to put up the picture of him wearing socks depicting the police's pigs. It's what Nike rewards. Gives you an idea of how profound the influence of the left is. There is no institution. Can you name an institution the left does not control? Let's see. The mainstream news media, the Hollywood, and the universities and high schools, and the Library Association, the Nursing Association, the public unions, the private unions, big business, the internet, Silicon Valley. No, I'm asking, can you name, I'm asking you, sitting 3 feet from me, is there a major institution that is not dominated by the left? The military, that's good. All right, no, I wasn't asking it rhetorically.
Right now, the presidency.
Oh yes, clearly the that's correct. Right now, the presidency, which is driving them crazy because they want to dominate everything. I was thinking of non-politics, but yeah, that's correct. To honor Colin Kaepernick with a T-shirt?
T-shirt? It's not more than a T-shirt.
No, it's apparel. I'm just using the T-shirt example. Well. Okay, easily.
Maybe it's a new Che Guevara.
I give you my word. I was thinking the same thing, and I decided not to say it. Che Guevara T-shirts.
He'll push Che.
Judy in Eastleigh, South Carolina. Hi, Judy.
Hi, Dennis. I'm glad to have gotten through to you. I had a comment today. It's because I am conservative, and my daughter-in-law, and therefore my grandchildren, are as left-wing, feminist, socialist as you can possibly get.
They went to college, I presume.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, she's on her third degree.
Oh, that's a bad sign. I feel terrible for you. Oh,
but
God.
she's also an atheist, so she has told the children we don't talk about God or Jesus or anything of that domain. And what I found is any time that we try to have a conversation about our beliefs, she takes it as an attack on her personally.
That's right.
You cannot have a discussion.
That's right.
It is slam the door, walk away.
That's right.
You have negated my feelings.
Right.
Even with the grandchildren, it's like, okay, my house, grandma's rules. So, we are not going to convert to your side of beliefs. We're going to talk about in the house. If the kids are here, well, that's what they're going to hear. And then, of course, you go home and tell them how wrong we were about everything, and even school, converting that because
is she married?
Oh yes, she's married to my son.
Oh, that's your daughter-in-law. I'm sorry, I thought you said daughter.
Yes.
Okay, I got you. Oh boy. Well, thank God you're talking to each other.
Oh yeah, I love her.
Okay, good. That's critical. But my heart goes out to you nevertheless. Hi, everybody. I'm Dennis Prager. One of the very, very telling aspects of people on the left is what Judy in South Carolina described when she talks to her daughter-in-law and they differ on something and she walks out being personally offended. Do conservatives do that? I'm sure there are some, but it's so rare, I can't imagine anybody doing it. You debate an issue and then you walk out because you're offended? I'm never offended when people differ with me. It doesn't even occur to me to be offended. That is why, let me just make sure I got that right. Judy, did I accurately restate what you said to me?
You did. Yes. And so my question to you would be, if that's the reaction from someone who you love and who I believe loves me in return. How in the world do you get through to someone you're just talking to when you can't seem to get through? And she was not this way all her life, by the way. She at her second degree is when she kind of became very, very leftist.
What is her degree in?
Well, she has several. She has a degree in economics, a degree in business administration, and she's currently getting one in science, laboratory sciences, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Well, my approach is clarity over agreement. That what I watch my video at Berkeley where I debated two left-wing students, and I didn't argue. I overwhelmingly just tried to clarify where we differ, they on the left and me on the right. And that's the best I think you could generally achieve in one-to-one conversations with people. You know, let's not argue. Let's just try to make clear for both of us where it is we differ. And so you think, for example, that if the government takes over all health care, it will be better for everybody, and the country will be able to afford it economically. And I don't. Okay. All right. Have a great day. Understand that. Steve in Los Angeles, California. Dennis Prager, hi.
Hey, Dennis, how you doing? First of all, a pleasure to talk to you. I thought I'd give you a real-time update. I was definitely going to call Nike today myself, but of course your radio show inspired me to do it immediately. So I got a hold of someone on the phone, and the person could not have been nicer. But I said, listen, I'd like to lodge a complaint. Who do I talk to? She said, well, I would normally connect you to this particular line, but they're overwhelmed right now. And I said, well, they should be overwhelmed right now. I said, the man wore socks that had cops as pigs. I said, this is the best you can do? I said, I'm not taking it personally against you, dear. I said, but this is a huge mistake, and I want you, if you have a moment, pass on to them. I will not buy any more Nike products. I thought you might want to know that.
I appreciate you telling me. I think everybody should call them up. And we got to get that picture up of the socks that he wore. I mean, it should be enough that he led the campaign to dishonor the flag. And I know the demagoguery, it honors the flag. This is it honors the flag is a classic example of left-wing morality. Up is down, down is up, blue is green, green is orange. That honors the flag, not to stand for it. See, he's really honoring the flag. So I guess the guys standing for it are dishonoring the flag. They're both honoring the flag. The guy who's standing, what? Not to mention the poisoning of sports. For that alone, people should be ticked off. I would be ticked off at a right-winger who did it. What if a right-winger, who I agreed with, wouldn't stand for the flag because they're so disgusted in the Obama administration, they're so disgusted with various policies. I'd say, excuse me, tell your opinion in a press conference after the game. In the meantime, we have a national anthem and we have a flag, and they're honored. It's one of the few things that's supposed to unite Americans. You've crapped on football. You've crapped on America. You've crapped on the police. And Nike gives you a multi-million-dollar contract to be a spokesman. Nike. You've disgraced yourself permanently. You will do, my friends, what you wish to do. Dennis Prager here. We continue.
Colin Kaepernick back in the news. I've done a whole presentation on him and his family, his history, and so on. But right now, I want to focus on unpacking the lid that is lifted on this Dantean hellscape of social justice warrior, mass provocation, and race baiting that is going on. Because this is almost 2 years after he played his last NFL game. Nike has just made Colin Kaepernick one of the faces of their Just Do It campaign. It's the 30th anniversary. Hey, you know what you get for your 30th anniversary? A 2+% drop in your stock value and close to $4 billion wiped out of your market cap. I think that comes right after paper and anti-diamonds. So the ad, you can see it everywhere you want. It's like the sad-eyed Colin Kaepernick face. And on it, it says, believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. First of all, I don't really think it's a great marketing idea to put forward a slogan of commitment and self-destruction that could be equally applied to a suicide bomber. But I guess you don't go to Nike for your philosophical insights unless, I guess, you're a complete idiot. And funny thing, just side by side, right? So if you've ever grown a beard, you know that it's kind of a ragged top, like it kind of peninsulas out up to your eyes. But Colin Kaepernick's beard is like space laser guided. It's got like he had to have a makeup artist working forever on that laser-like even beard, because, you know, when you're fighting great evil in the world, it's really, really important to make sure that your beard line is really, really straight. So Nike has a vice president of brand for North America, Gino Fisinotti, and issued a statement to ESPN saying, here's what we think about Kaepernick's involvement in our campaign. And I quote, "We believe Colin is one of the most inspirational athletes of this generation who has leveraged the power of sport to help move the world forward." Yeah. Moves the world forward, moves Nike's market cap down about $4 billion. Now, it's going to be a big branding problem for them. Hashtag boycott Nike is the #1 trending topic in Twitter in the US as we speak. So for those who don't know the history, I'm sure you do, he started taking the knee, Kaepernick, during the national anthem. Why? Because social, racial injustices plaguing the country, and the 49ers released him from contract following the 2016 season, and no team has signed him since. Now, currently, because again, he's very much against injustice, he is suing the NFL owners. He says that they're conspiring to keep him out of the league. And actually, just last week, there was a mediator who announced that Kaepernick's complaint against the 32 owners can go forward all the way to trial. And Nike, of course, the NFL's official supplier of sideline apparel and uniforms and so on through 2028. And this was a deal that just came up in March. So you see, for Colin Kaepernick, a couple of things are really, really important. #1 is you have to be able to resolutely and sometimes viciously criticize the government and the society that you're in. Very, very important. Also, you have to be able to bring suit against people who don't want to hire you. I mean, I think it's a free market. People should be able to hire and fire whoever they want. But here's one of the marketing challenges of Colin Kaepernick. So a couple of years ago, he had a press conference. And at the press conference, he wore a T-shirt. And the T-shirt had a picture of Malcolm X. All right. Debatable. However, it was a picture of Malcolm X who was meeting with the late communist murderer dictatorship owner, Fidel Castro. Now that's pretty hideous because, well, for more than half a century, Cuba was groaning under the bloody heels of the Castro-ruled dictatorship. Castro stifled, brutalized, murdered, threw into medieval dungeons pretty much anyone who disagreed with him. And according to Human Rights Watch, and I quote, "Cuban citizens have been systematically deprived of their fundamental rights to free expression, privacy, association, assembly, movement, and due process of law. Tactics for enforcing political conformity have included police warnings, surveillance, short-term detentions, house arrests, travel restrictions, criminal prosecutions, and politically motivated dismissals from employment." So you see, he's very, very keen on living in a society where you can criticize your government, and then he wears a T-shirt with a picture of a guy who stifled and slaughtered dissent. Now, what Kaepernick said when talking about wearing the T-shirt with Malcolm X and Fidel Castro, he said, "The fact that he, Malcolm X, met with Fidel, to me speaks to his open mind to be willing to hear different aspects of people's views and ultimately being able to create his own views as far as the best way to approach different situations, different cultures. You know, if you have to pettifog that much about a t-shirt, it probably was unwise to wear the t-shirt, or maybe it was wise, so people could know exactly where you stand. Now, one thing he said about Castro, he said, one thing Fidel Castro did do is they have the highest literacy rate because they invest more in their educational system than they do in their prison system, which we do not here even, though we are fully capable of doing that. All right, so a couple of things to break down of these kinds of statements. Boy, I wish they taught more critical thinking in schools, but it's okay. Here we go. So, the highest literacy rate, that's not true. Even if it was supposedly true, well, this is the same island where regularly 100% of people who will risk shark-infested waters floating on a broomstick to get out, 100% of people continue to vote for the existing dictator. You might just want to bring a tiny, tiny bit of skepticism to the wonderful literacy rates coming out of a blood-soaked communist dictatorship, Colin. Come on! Think a little bit less time trimming the old beard lines, a little bit more time thinking about the people who've been brutalized or were brutalized for more than half a century under this murderous dictator. Invest more in their education system. What kind of education system do you think they have in a communist dictatorship, Colin? Do you think it's objective? Do you think it teaches critical thinking? No. Teaching critical thinking would be like teaching Russian roulette, because critical thinking gets you killed in a dictatorship. And, well, as to why they don't invest that much in a prison system, see, when you have firing squads and kangaroo courts, you pretty much don't need to invest a lot in a criminal justice system, because your justice system is already criminal. Useful idiots of the world, how much do they cost in time and energy? Just absolutely astonishing. Castro had concentration camps and labor camps. Castro had forced conversion therapy for gay men. Castro was a compatriot and a supporter of the child-murdering Che Guevara. Castro also helped precipitate the Cuban Missile Crisis that took all carbon-based life forms on Earth to the very brink of nuclear extinction. And a murderous dictator responsible for slaughtering tens of thousands of political dissidents, Cubans. And by the way, Colin, no freedom of speech in Cuba. So all the things that you value about America do not exist in the country that was ruled by the guy whose T-shirt image you proudly wore. My God. Colin Kaepernick also wore socks depicting cops as pigs. Depicting cops as pigs. Cops, of course, are the thin blue line in poor communities, black communities, Hispanic communities, white communities. Cops are the thin blue line that keep the predatory criminals from the decent law-abiding citizens. So when you attack the cops, you are harming vulnerable poor people in poor communities. So there's that. There's the phrase, right? Believe in something, even if it means sacrificing everything. So yeah, suicide bombers. You know who else that would apply to? Hitler believed in something and pretty much sacrificed everything, 60 million lives across Europe, the entire survival of Germany as it stood. So mere commitment is not a positive thing. It can be extraordinarily dangerous. And what the hell is Colin Kaepernick sacrificing anyway? He was paid over $12 million for a season. He's got a net worth of the tens of millions of dollars. He's past his sports prime, and basically he's just pussy whipped by his social justice warrior girlfriend into going out and making all this noise. You know, when people want a lot of attention, but they go past their prime, whether it's women in terms of physical attractiveness or sportsmen in terms of athletic ability, what happens? Well, they just start poking the hornet's nest of racial and social divisions, and then they get a lot of attention. So this, I mean, it's wild. This is going to hugely harm Nike in a very permanent way. There are people, of course, a lot of them are in Florida, who've actually fled this regime, who when they see someone wearing a T-shirt with a positive picture of Fidel Castro on it, well, it's like going to Israel and proudly marching around with a picture of Hitler on your shirt. It's not a very good idea because Fidel Castro, like Hitler, was stone evil. So the big slogan for Nike is just do it. You might want to rethink that slogan and the whole business model. There's another one that says, just say no to all of this virtue signaling, this social justice warrior posturing, this calling out to the most sinister elements in society and raising up as a flag the blood-soaked communist dictatorship leaders. You know, when you are lockstep in alignment with former Iranian President Mahmoud Ahmadinejad, who tweeted out his support for Colin Kaepernick, you might want to rethink your business model just a little bit. You might want to think about closing up that unholy portal of HR wherein all of these leftist idiots stream in to destroy your business. Because the question is, why do we have this astonishing difference, this oppositional difference between National Socialism, which is on the left, and communism, which is on the left? National Socialism, the National Socialist German Workers' Party, the Nazis, absolute stone evil. Yeah, I got no problem with that. But there are very few Nazis left in the world anymore. You get a gathering, and it's just like some people milling around, waiting for a mall to open on a Wednesday morning. It's really not a big deal. Not a lot of Nazis, but apparently the Nazis are everywhere. Not a lot of KKK members, but the KKK apparently are everywhere. The ghosts of horrifying movements past have taken up residence in everybody's haunted house of fevered imagination. You know who there are a lot of, is communists. Communists are infesting Western society. There are tens of thousands of open communists in American universities outright propagandizing your children who are paying for the privilege of becoming unemployable losers who hate everything about freedom. Now, if there were tens of thousands of Nazis, genuine Nazis, open, avowed Nazis, wearing little buttons of Hitler and swastikas on the arm, if there were tens of thousands of Nazis, yeah, I'd say, you know what? We got a big problem with Nazism at the moment. But tens of thousands of communists, it's diversity. And communism has a far higher death count than Nazism. So we say, you understand, National Socialism, Nazism, caused 60 million deaths in World War II. That's terrible. Over the 20th century alone, death count still going on. Still going on. Look at North Korea. Started out as a communist country. Communism in the 20th century alone, 100 million deaths, right? So you got 60 million. Nazism completely discredited among all sane individuals, and there are just a couple of people out there LARPing as Nazis these days with no political power or effect, no propagandistic power, no embedding in the institutions that are supposed to serve the freedoms of the West. Communism is everywhere, and communism has a much higher death count than Nazism. Slaughtered more people, destroyed more cultures, more countries. I mean, in the famine in China, people were eating tree bark. They were eating, you know, that little skin that comes off garlic. They were trying to eat that. They were ripping open their pillows and attempting to eat bird feathers. In the Holodomor, the political starvation of resistance elements in Ukraine under the communist regime, people had to turn to cannibalism to survive. You know, Venezuela down the road. Venezuela, now! Communism is worse than Nazism for two reasons. Higher death count, wider spread across the world, and tens of thousands of communists, probably hundreds of thousands throughout the West, embedded in higher education, just to name one particular area. More dangerous. And so wearing a picture of Fidel Castro, currently worse than Hitler in terms of society's awareness of the danger and the death count as a whole. So, of course, his criticisms, it's the 1-2 punch, the genocide of the Native Americans and slavery. That is the big problem. Well, I've done presentations on slavery and on the native genocide. You can check them out on my channel. I won't go into the arguments here. But, slavery 150 years ago, native genocides, even if we accept that they did take place hundreds of years ago. It was a Labor Day weekend in Chicago. 6 dead. Do you know that in Chicago, more than 1,000 people have been shot just since Memorial Day? See, that's quite a lot. And why is he talking about potential crimes centuries old when there's actual slaughters going on in the here and now? Care about slavery? There are currently open-air slave markets in Libya because of Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama destroying Muammar Gaddafi, opening up the gateways of migrants to pour into Europe and destroying the country as a whole. Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton. Well, 95% of blacks voted for Barack Obama, and the vast majority of blacks supported Hillary Clinton. Both of them have created conditions that have reintroduced slavery into Libya, where you can buy a human being for $400. Slavery is still being practiced in many countries around the world. Why do you need to go back through this tunnel of time to find a slavery that has been repudiated and rejected and outlawed when you have over 40 million people around the world who are victims of slavery as of 2016? A quarter of those are children. You have more than 10 million slaves in the world right now. Again, not even counting North Korea. Do you care about slavery? I think you don't. I think you care about sowing division. I think you care about getting money. I think you care about fame. I think you care about attention. Do you actually care about slavery? Because it's going on right now. And what are you doing about it? I don't think you care about slavery. I think what you're doing is you're using the bodies of ancient wrongs as human shields for a modern-day socialist political agenda. It's a horrifying use of human beings, of human suffering, of human tragedies, of human evils. Don't use it to shore up your political agenda. I mean, is that what the slaves suffered for? Is that what all the people suffered for, to end slavery? So you could use their suffering to shill for government control of healthcare? That's what he wants. He admires universal healthcare in communist Cuba. And here's the funny thing. There's this contradiction in leftist thinking regarding exploitation and minorities. Let's just talk about blacks. On the one hand, you see, the leftists say that the evil, exploitive, capitalist class will just pillage everyone for money. They're so greedy, they will bypass all human norms just to exploit people as much as humanly possible. All right. Now, they paid these evil, in the leftist view, these evil capitalist employers, they paid over $12 million just in 1 year for Colin Kaepernick to throw and catch a ball and run and dodge. And the question is why? Why did they pay all of this money to Colin Kaepernick? Well, because he was a good enough player, a skilled enough player, to generate more than $12 million in revenue, right? You can't pay people more than they generate in revenue. So when people's wages are low, it's because they're not generating value, right? The movie star gets paid $10 million. The guy in the background, who's easily replaceable, who's just walking down the street to make the city look crowded, gets paid $10 an hour. Why? Because the movie star is able to get people to come to the movie and pay more than $10 million worth in ticket prices, whereas the guy in the back is easily replaceable. You need someone, but it could really be anyone. So when people complain about low wages, what they're really complaining about is that people can't generate enough economic value to justify higher wages. Right? Just passing minimum wage laws, it's all just to make up for the fact that government schools are so terrible that after 12 years of education, people can barely read and write. They don't understand economics. They don't understand the freedoms of their society. They don't understand how to provide value. They don't understand how to service customers. They don't understand the free market. They don't understand trade. They understand virtually nothing. Nothing. So they're worth virtually nothing after 12 years. They're worth virtually nothing. So they say capitalists will exploit everyone. But they can't find ways for the poorer in society to pay them more. They can't find any way to exploit people who've gone through these terrible education systems. Where's the greed? Because here are the facts, here's the reality. There absolutely is, and are, and will be, horrifying criminal injustices in the American legal system, and in all Western systems, and in all Eastern systems, and every other damn system in the world, subject to corruption, subject to abuses of power, as the black community often feels about cops. Well, if you're into Trump and you watch what Mueller is doing, what Mueller is doing to Papadopoulos, to General Flynn, to Manafort, if you look at all of this persecution, well, you can see, right, that there is a huge rot and corruption in the American justice system. And that needs to be addressed. It needs to be addressed for all people, regardless of race, regardless of gender. But that having been said, there is a problem in the black community that no amount of kneeling and sock wearing and proselytizing and t-shirt wearing is going to just make go away. Blacks are about 13% of the US population, black males, 6 or 7%, and young black males, which is just a couple of percentage point of the US population, is responsible for about 50% of homicides in America. You have a couple of percentage points of the population responsible for about 50% of homicides in America. And no, it's not just because of the corruption of the legal system that the blacks are found responsible for these murders, the young black men, right? You understand. The crime victimization surveys, which survey people, match this pretty much exactly. So you can wear all of the silly socks that you want. You can wear all of the t-shirts of communist dictatorships that you want, but it's not going to erase this basic fact. And when you have a small proportion of the population committing an extraordinarily high number of murders, and this is just murders, other crimes are high as well, you can't just wish that away. You have challenges you need to deal with. And you can't just say, well, you see, the reason that young black men murder so often is white racism. Come on. Come on. You can't seriously say that that is the entire causality, that nothing else is going on, that is the sole and only explanation. The fact that around 3/4 of black kids are being raised in broken homes, does that have anything to do with it? The fact that government schools are absolutely terrible in poor neighborhoods, does that have anything to do with it? Nothing is going to shift those basic facts, and there are explanations for some of those facts. It's a complex question. There are explanations. I've talked about them on this show many, many times before. But there are explanations as to why some of this disparity in criminal activity is occurring. And as long as we stay on this white racism, police brutality, police corruption, white racism, we're never going to solve these problems, and more people are going to get murdered. And more families are going to be destroyed, both in the victims' families and the perpetrators' families, as the perpetrator goes to jail for decades or perhaps for life. We have had an answer, which has largely been pushed by leftists, which is white racism is responsible for everything. White privilege, white racism, and so on, and police brutality, and so on. It does not solve the problem. It is something that needs to be talked about, but it's not the only thing that needs to be talked about. We need new answers, or at least complementary answers, to the one sole, single explanation that has not worked and for which there is very little empirical evidence, very little empirical data. We need new answers. I've provided new answers. Interviewed the subject matter experts, talked about the causality. Because the only freedom that we have, the only fundamental freedom that we have, is freedom from illusion. Freedom from the illusion of knowledge. How did we end up controlling nature through science? By subjugating ourselves to the iron laws of physics and biology. Nature, to be commanded, as the saying goes, must be obeyed. How did we end up gaining power over nature? By submitting ourselves to reason and evidence. The only freedom we have is freedom from illusion. If you think that illness is a curse caused by a ghost, you can't research germ theory, you can't research the effects of washing your hands. You can't develop antibiotics because you think you have an answer. You're not free of disease as long as your causality for disease is illusory, is wrong. We need to look at new information. We need to find new solutions, challenging solutions, scary solutions, factual, empirical, rational solutions. Because if you're not willing to look at new information, Colin, you're just perpetuating old injustices.
Nike Shoes has decided to enter the culture war on the side of the left. They've launched an ad campaign featuring Colin Kaepernick, who is controversial after he started kneeling at football games. He's now an unsigned free agent, and many people believe the reason for that is nobody wants to sign him because he's just too controversial. Even Donald Trump tweeted that the protests were disrespectful. But people on the left think that the protests were warranted, and Colin Kaepernick was just voicing his free speech, and he was trying to bring up issues about racial injustice. There's a saying among those associated with anti-social justice movements, which is get woke, go broke. And this references when a company tries to enter the culture war, they end up losing money. And now it would seem that it may be the case, as already there's calls for a boycott on Nike, and Reuters is reporting that their shares have taken a hit. This isn't the only boycott we've seen in the past week, and there have been other issues related to major companies who wanted to join the political conflict, and this resulted in them losing money. So today, let's start by looking at the main story about Colin Kaepernick, and then look at some other stories where companies have actually lost money by trying to get involved in the culture war. The first story from CBS News: Colin Kaepernick Just Do It ad sparks Nike boycott. Nike's long-running Just Do It campaign is geared toward getting consumers to pay attention to the brand, but analysts say its decision to add Colin Kaepernick risks drawing the wrong type of notice. Shares of the shoe and apparel giant dropped about 3% in pre-market trading after the company announced that the unsigned free agent, who is known for kneeling during the national anthem to bring attention to racial injustices, would join the company's signature campaign. Other players also kneeled during the anthem, spurring criticism from President Donald Trump. Nike is certainly provoking debate by hiring Kaepernick, Global Data Retail Managing Director Neil Saunders said in a report. While noting the risks of company getting involved in a highly politicized issue, marketing campaigns typically aim to generate positive buzz, rather than engaging in ways that may divide consumers. This means it could ultimately alienate and lose customers, which is not the purpose of a marketing campaign, Saunders wrote. Although the company's stand may go down well on its native West Coast, it will be far less welcome in many other locations. The reaction on social media veered between support for Nike and consumers saying they would participate in a boycott. Some people posted videos of themselves burning Nike shoes. Despite slipping ahead of markets opening in the US, Nike shares are up more than 30% this year through the close of trade on Friday. And the story highlights this tweet from John Pavlovitz. He says, anyone participating in a Nike boycott is proving exactly why Colin Kaepernick was kneeling in the first place. Because too many white people value their songs and flags and privilege above the lives of people of color. As of the filming of this video, Nike stock is down around 2.63%. And a lot of people are going to claim this is because of the boycott. But let's be honest, stocks go up and down all the time, and it's only 3%. So could it be related to the boycott? Yes, it could. I think if a company is going to engage in this kind of politicking, they're going to face some kind of backlash. But it's entirely possible that by the end of the day, the stock recovers, and it's not really that big of a deal. But this tweet that was highlighted by CBS News from John Pavlovitz, I believe is actually wrong. We can see that it has 2,206 retweets, so a lot of people on the left are sharing this. But there's something they aren't considering. The left typically does not like Nike shoes because they have been engaged in contracting sweatshops in foreign countries. They do a lot of things the American public doesn't like. For one, outsourcing the production of their shoes is seen as negative by a lot of people, typically people on the right, but also using sweatshop labor. And this has been going on for decades. A lot of the people I know that are associated with the far left are actually saying they don't care about this campaign and they wouldn't wear Nike shoes anyway because of the labor abuses that Nike is involved in. It was not even a year ago we saw this story from Quartz. Nike is facing a new wave of anti-sweatshop protests. Nike is one of the business world's shining examples of how to clean up an image. In the 1990s, the company was plagued by reports that used sweatshops and child labor. Pressure grew until 1998 when Nike co-founder Phil Knight publicly committed to changing the company's practices, and Nike spent the next decade doing just that. Now, Nike's sweatshop problem is threatening a comeback. On July 29th, student and activists around the world participated in a day of protest against Nike organized by United Students Against Sweatshops. The demonstrations in cities such as Boston, Washington, D.C., Bangalore, and San Pedro Sula in Honduras represented an escalation of allegations against Nike that have been slowly bubbling up. Among them are claims that workers at Nike Contract Factory in Hansi, Vietnam suffered wage theft and verbal abuse and labored for hours in temperatures well over the legal limit of 90 degrees, to the point that they would collapse at their sewing machines. Nike is also accused of cutting jobs at the Hanse factory and pulling production from a factory in Honduras with a strong union presence, resulting in hundreds of workers losing vital jobs. The company has also allegedly denied the independent monitoring group Workers' Rights Consortium access to inspect its contract factories. The WRC was founded in 2000 by universities, international labor rights experts, and student groups, including USAS, to ensure that product-bearing university logos were made under conditions that respected workers' rights. The argument put forth by many people, including this one tweet that's been highlighted, that people are more concerned with their white privilege as opposed to the strife of colored people, is absolutely factually incorrect when you realize that Nike has been criticized for decades over their treatment of sweatshop workers in foreign countries, most notably in Asian countries. These are people who are not white, who are suffering at the hands of Nike, allegedly. And activists on the left have been decrying these labor abuses for decades. To see now people claiming that the boycott supports some kind of idea of white privilege is just wrong. I don't know who these people are, and I'm not sure who's calling to support Nike in this instance, but I can say that I do know a lot of far-left activists, and they're posting on Facebook that they're going to boycott Nike too, because they've been this whole time. But it's not just this boycott of Nike. We're seeing political boycotts happen all the time. A couple days ago, the left was calling for boycotts of In-N-Out, and then a bunch of conservatives and Trump supporters went and bought burgers. We're even seeing some people claim that previous boycotts the right has engaged in haven't worked. But before I get into that, I gotta give a quick shout out to today's sponsor. You guys know how this works. These guys help make this stuff happen. Virtual Shield is a VPN. That's a virtual private network. And what this does is it scrambles your data so that it's harder for people to spy on you. And yes, there are a lot of people that want to spy on you, from governments to hackers to just, general bad actors who want to take your data and do bad things with it. They're currently offering a 12-month deal on their VPN, plus you'll get 1 year free of their exclusive IdentiSafe software. This is software that blocks your camera and microphone on your Windows device so that you can have peace of mind. All you have to do is go to hidewithtim.com and click Get This Exclusive Deal. They've got a coupon code, TimCast IDSafe free, and then you can choose whatever plan works for you. What I always tell people is that the world isn't perfect, and we don't always expect to get spied on or robbed, but we do have locks on our doors for a reason. In reality, if someone wants to break your door in, they're gonna do it, but it doesn't mean we don't lock our doors. So VPNs are typically a good idea for people who are more security conscious and want to protect their privacy. So for those that are interested, go to hidewithtim.com to try the service out today. But now let's get back to the main point, that often there are problems faced by companies that try to get in on politics. This story from Reuters just this morning, Nike shares hit as Kaepernick ad spurs boycott. In the story, they have this quote: "The alt-right calls for a Nike boycott will fail just like the boycott of Dick's Sporting Goods failed," said Matt Powell, a senior advisor with market research firm NPD Group. Old, angry white guys are not a core demographic for Nike. The story goes on, gun rights supporters called for the boycott of Dick's Sporting Goods earlier this year after the retailer stopped selling assault rifles and high-capacity magazines following a massacre at a Florida high school in February. I do need to stop right here and point out this factual error. Dick's Sporting Goods has never sold assault rifles. They are illegal to sell. What they're referring to is modern hunting rifles like the AR-15. But the man they quoted said that old white men are not the demographic for Nike, and that the boycott on Dick's Sporting Goods failed. Well, he's technically wrong on both fronts. Yes, old white people probably aren't the demographic for Nike, but I'm sure some of them do buy shoes. But at the same time, the left is also not the demographic for Nike because they've been protesting them over their labor abuses. The thing he's mainly wrong about, though, is Dick's Sporting Goods, because they did see sales slump after they pulled guns from their stores. And this story from Reuters is just from a couple days ago. Gun policy, Under Armour weakness, hit Dick's Sporting sales. Dick's Sporting Goods reported a bigger than expected drop in quarterly same-store sales on Wednesday and forecast further declines this year, hit by tighter gun controls and a drop in Under Armour sales. Shares in the company fell as much as 10% after it posted a 1.9% drop in same-store sales, bigger than analysts' average estimate of a 0.62% dip. Dick's was one of the first retailers to stop selling modern sporting rifles, not assault rifles, and high-capacity magazines, as well as bar the sale of guns to people under the age of 21 following a massacre at a Florida high school in February. The company had predicted that its hunting guns business would be pressurized by the change in policy, but said the move would also attract more people to its stores. An analyst was quoted as saying, "We had expected comp weakness in hunting and electronics, as well as continued pressure in Under Armour and less benefit from store maturation. But these trends caused more pressure than anticipated." Now, to be fair, whether or not the drop in sales is the result of a boycott or simply if they're not offering the products, people aren't going to come and buy it, is up to you to debate. A lot of people claimed to boycott Dick's. A lot of people told stories about how they were legal adults who had a right to buy a gun, but Dick's turned them away because they weren't 21. And this led to a lot of people on social media saying they wouldn't go there. So I can't say I'm surprised to see that their sales are down substantially more so than they actually predicted, and it resulted in a drop in shares. I can't speak for anybody else as to why they would engage in a boycott or why they would or would not go to a store, but all I can say is, personally, I don't care for boycotts. If you're going to boycott In-N-Out, I'm going to say that's silly, and I'm going to enjoy my cheeseburger. Actually, this is something most people don't know this. I don't really eat beef, so I don't eat it In-N-Out anyway because it's all they sell. But just boycotting a company because of their behind-the-scenes practices of making political contributions doesn't bother me. However, I will say that I probably won't buy anything from Nike, not because they endorsed or hired on Colin Kaepernick. I really don't care about that. I think it's a silly debate for the most part, but I understand it's the culture war. The reason I'm not going to engage with this company is because they decided to enter the culture war, and they shouldn't. They're a shoe company. They're trying to get political, in my opinion, because it's a marketing tactic. They know that a lot of people are going to be talking about it. They know that people like me will make videos about it, and it's going to generate buzz from the company. But it does produce a risk for the company because right now their shares are down. As I mentioned, we don't know why their shares are down. It could be because of the boycott, maybe not. But we've seen some other companies lose money, have their sales go down, and their shares fall following similar controversies. I don't want to have anything to do with the culture war in my personal life. If I'm going to wear shoes, because I need shoes, not because I want to make a political statement. And a lot of people, I guess they're hoping, will make the political statement by buying their shoes in support of their political move. Like with conservatives and Trump supporters buying cheeseburgers from In-N-Out to support the company following the boycott, I think a lot of companies hope that by engaging in the culture war, something positive will happen. Most of the time, I think companies engage in this kind of culture war rhetoric simply because they want to expand their market to groups they didn't normally sell to. I think the endorsement or the hiring on of Kaepernick might actually be because the left doesn't like them due to their bad image as it pertains to labor rights. And now you have people on the left saying you should support Nike, and if you don't, you're alt-right or things to that effect. But how do you feel about it? Do you support their right to hire Colin Kaepernick, and do you agree with their message? Or do you think that they're being silly and simply trying to make money off of a controversy? Comment below, we'll keep the conversation going. Stick around, I've got more videos coming up on my second channel, youtube.com/TimCastNews, in just a couple hours. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all next time.